I keep seeing that video of Jojo Siwa dancing in her dance studio doing that combination. Number one, this is not bad choreography. That's besides the point. It is being executed very poorly, and I'll tell you exactly why. And these are literally the things I get paid to tell students. It's not just that she's hitting everything too hard and too big, which she is. She doesn't have any texture. Texture is exactly what it sounds like. It refers to the different possibilities of movement quality, like a lot of resistance and good pressure, or a lot of quick cutting movements, carving your shapes out of the space. When you hit every movement so hard like she's doing, none of the movements stand out or hit, so you defeat the entire purpose. It's like highlighting an entire textbook. What is the point then? It's the same reason why somebody who's usually quiet and then loses their cool and all of a sudden blows up is way more powerful and alarming and gets your attention than someone who's just yelling at you all the time. Dancing is a form of communication, and much like speaking, it has phrasing to it. There's no surprises in her movement. Nothing catches you off guard. There's no sense of whispering this movement and then exploding on the next movement. The hardest thing for many artists to learn, no matter what type of craft you're in, is that less is quite often more. Also, this is what I would say if I were on the mic doing adjudication tapes for this number. There's no intentionality on where the shapes stop. That is just as important on where the shapes begin and how hard you hit them. If you fling yourself into every shape so hard that you don't have enough control to have clear delineation about where those shapes are supposed to stop, those shapes that you were trying to make so clear and sharp become blurry. We don't want blurry, bleeding shapes unless it's intentional. If you look really close, there's like a lot of additional unintentional adjusting and like movement after a lot of these counts. There's no sense of internal like center. I actually learned most everything I know about phrasing and texture and intentionality of movements and the silence in the music and how you have to dance stillness just as much as you have to dance movement from hip hop. Because in a big way, it forces you to learn how a step feels as opposed to how a step just looks. If you work professionally, you will know that there's three types of dancers. There's tricksters / athletes, there's artists / stylists, and then there's the ones that can do both. And honestly, that can really be applied to all forms of art. You know, you can be a belter, trickster singer that can just hit high notes, or you can be a singer that people love for the actual tone and timbre of your voice, or you can sometimes be both. You can be a video editor whose value lies in how quickly on the spot you are able to like cut and edit vlogs on the go or ads or whatever. Or you can be a long form content creator, which is very, very different. Not any better, not any worse. Very rarely can you do both, but some people can. Jojo is what we refer to as a pure trickster. There's no finesse there. There's no finesse there. I actually kind of regret that tattoo, but anyway, this is just my pet peeve soapbox because it's one of my special interests. There's been an age-old discussion happening for a very long time now about whether or not competition dance, which is what Jojo Siwa does, which is what I get paid to go and, judge, whether it's actually dance or not, whether it shouldn't be its own category, because it's been so infiltrated now by gymnasts and tricksters and athletes. And it's not a competition. Like, it's not literally like this versus them. But there's no artistry there. There's no finesse. There's passion. There's energy. And it sounds like it's not that deep, but it starts to bleed over into a really interesting conversation about what is art and what is just athleticism. Because as a professional dancer, as a judge who goes and judges competitions for studios exactly like this, that is one of the biggest things that the judges panel will be talking about constantly in the industry. And what's really interesting is that when So You Think You Can Dance came along, it really kind of started a conversation in the Broadway scene too, because all of a sudden you have these kids coming in that aren't used to the industry where you have to do 8 shows a week, wanting to show off the fact that they were tumbling and doing 8 pirouettes and doing knee drops and kind of unintentionally changing the face of the industry. And then we had choreographers coming up that wanted to start changing the type of choreography that was putting in the shows, not understanding that it's not the same thing doing a show 8 times a week. All day long, no matter what, I would much rather see a dancer that tells a story, that has some emotion, than a dancer that is just showing off over and over and over and over. There's a time and place for that, sure, but not all the time, especially if that's all you can do, and then you claim to be a dancer teaching the youth. It's gonna sound like I'm being a hater and whatever, but it just makes me kind of sad when I see people like Jojo opening up their own studios and realizing that this is just the type of dance that we're going to be perpetuating for the younger generation. Because honestly, truly, as a dance professional, the phrasing in that combo was really bad. And she's teaching her students to dance like that. It's just a big part of the problem also is that there's no like standard or like federation for dance teachers. Like Tiffany, Amber Lee, whoever's mom can open up a dance studio and decide that she's capable of teaching kids. And I see it happen all the time. Aside from the fact that they're not teaching artistry, they're breaking some of these kids' bodies because their teaching is not rooted in any type of technique. And we learn the technique so that we can let go of the technique later. And that's absolutely not to say that I think that you have to have technique to be an amazing dancer. Some of my favorite dancers that I've highlighted in national numbers have been self-described movers, but they have emotion. There's no punctuation in that combo, the way that she's executing it. The greatest dancers in the world can take the worst, silliest, most poorly choreographed combo and make it look amazing, and vice versa.